Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mayor and I edition
49.
And as you can see, we have a new set, which is fantastic. Nick.
Yes.
And to tell you the truth, viewers, I arrived about an hour ago, and Nick has been spending about an hour trying to get everything working. So I hope it is working. You couldn't get the microphones working for quite a while, I think.
No, but it looks like
they are working around. But this is a new set to celebrate 20,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And now we're not scissoring anymore.
And the scissoring has ended.
Yes.
Officially.
It's a shame. I was looking forward to that every week.
So it's actually looking very professional because I've got my laptop here, which means I don't have to print things out, even though I have printed things out. And you've got your book on the table. We have our drinks.
Yes.
It's like a proper studio. Professional lighting. Some slightly gay lighting behind Nick. There's nothing wrong with that, Nick, is there? We don't have any issues with gay people. So yeah, it's fine. Welcome to edition 49 of the Mayor and I. And just to note, readers, or viewers, I've shaved my beard off and cut my hair.
Yeah, and you look 15 years younger.
Thank you.
Gandalf's gone and Frodo's turned up.
And that's just because I've given up any hope of you achieving public office.
I don't blame you.
Carry on, basically. So welcome everybody to the Mayor and I edition 49, brand new formats. And I've been away for a week.
Yeah.
And as always, a lot's happened in that week, hasn't it? England got beaten by Greece 2-1.
Yep.
Which was dreadful.
By Greece.
And Greece. But it's quite interesting. While I was in Portugal, I was chatting with the pool guy who happens to be a Scouser, your favourite people. And he said most Liverpoolians don't support England.
Right.
And my experience is most United fans don't support England either, which is strange, isn't it, really? I think proper football fans don't support England.
And that's because we've moved away as a nation from being patriotic and supporting the nation.
Yeah.
It's easier and you're more connected to your local football team, even though 90% of them are foreigners, than being connected to your national team, who are so far away from you and removed from you and are so political and woke and crap that you would rather identify with your local team who are not even local.
Yeah.
Says a lot about the English team.
I think there's also the thing that Alex Ferguson used to complain about the team being sent away to England. He worried about them getting injured.
But he was a Scot, so he didn't care about England.
No, he despised
them.
Yeah. But part of his rationale was when they went away to play for England, they might get injured or whatever, they'd be away from the match, they'd lose the focus. So he kind of started a lot of that, I think, but I think it's permeated a lot of the Premiership teams now. But it's an interesting point. Even though most of their players are foreign, they don't really particularly like England.
No.
So that was interesting. But also, what's really good news, Trinidad and Tobago beat Cuba 3-1 in the CONCACAF, whatever that is.
Who cares?
I do, because my dad's from Trinidad.
Right.
But congratulations on 20,000 subscribers.
20 and a half.
20,500.
So next, probably end of this week, we'll hit 21,000.
And I was looking on your YouTube channel. You've had over 2 million views as well. Now, is that 2 million original views or just 2 million views in total?
2 million views in total.
Right. So
and that's from the very start.
Yeah.
At the moment now, we're averaging 500,000 views a month.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Okay, so yeah, just really good news. I'm thrilled, and clearly, and I meant to tell you, I WhatsApped a good friend of mine from years ago. We worked together in a business, and I sent him the Jim Bowen joke that we did. I think we talked about it in a previous episode, and he WhatsApped back and he said, I've been watching you on with Nick Buckley as well. And I said, oh right. I said, did I tell you about that? He said, no, it just came up on my feed. This is a guy who lives in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him for a year or so. And he said it came up on my feed. And I was like, oh right, that's kind of weird. And I keep saying, I'm just suspicious that so many people are saying, I've seen you on YouTube, and it's not even like my name or my face. And then I see the numbers and I think the correlation seems to, you and I have discussed this before, quite a lot to talk about. Something happened yesterday that I particularly wanted to talk about. Do you know the name Peter Lynch?
He's the granddad who died in jail.
Yeah. In fact, I think you may have sent me the thing. So Peter Lynch is a 61-year-old man who was arrested during the Southport riots, or after the Southport riots. And he died yesterday in prison, committed suicide, I believe.
Yeah,
committed suicide.
That's what it looks like at the moment, suicide.
So what fascinated me about this story, Nick, and I'd be interested in your views. It came up in the papers, and it was kind of down the page. Riots, a 61-year-old rioter dies in jail. But what dominated the headlines yesterday was a character called Chris Kaba. Chris Kaba is a black, for our gentle viewers, Chris Kaba is a black criminal, basically, who was killed from London, who was killed by a policeman when he was trying to evade arrest, and I think he was threatening. I'm not quite sure.
He was in a car. He'd been stopped by a specialist police team where they box you in and stop you. He then started ramming the cars, trying to get out. He put the officers' lives in danger by trying to run him over as he's trying to get out of this box. The car was involved in the shooting the day before, and he was known to carry guns and be a major part of a gangster in London. So armed response were trying to stop him.
So for some reason, this Chris Kaba. So the story yesterday is the policeman who shot him was basically what's the word? Exonerated of found not guilty of murdering Chris Kaba, basically set free. And then it was all the headlines, top headlines: Chris Kaba killer set free or whatever. And then pictures of vigils of people saying justice for Chris Kaba and all that sort of stuff. People on posters and things like that. And I thought, what the hell? What about Peter Lynch? And Peter Lynch, just for clarity for our listeners, Peter Lynch, he had not done committed any violence. It was a hostel in Rotherham. He had simply been shouting, and I think the judge regarded he'd incited violence, or he was shouting at the cops or whatever. He was jailed for 3 years. This guy, not hurt anybody.
For shouting at the police.
And he has now died in. So my question to you, Nick, is: where are the vigils for Peter Lynch? Where are the protests on the streets? Where are the British people, the English people, the people who want to go out and protest for this Chris Kaba criminal? Where are they?
Peter's got one thing against him, and it's because he's white. He's a white heterosexual male. If he'd have been a woman, gay, black, Muslim, Asian, disabled, and had committed suicide in jail, it would be frontline news, and there would be demonstrations, and all the charities would be involved. But because he was a straight old white man, no one gives a shit. In which case, everyone then looked at the Chris Kaba, who was a career criminal. His family are basically disgusting because they've been trying to portray him as a trainee architect. No, he was senior in one of the biggest violent gangs in London. I can understand them being upset. It doesn't matter if your child is a violent criminal. If they're killed, you're still going to be upset, and you still love that child. I get that. But all I want to hear from his family is a big sorry. I'd like to apologise to the British people, because we moved here as a family from Africa, and you've given us this great life. And unfortunately, we weren't good enough parents, and we raised our child to be a violent criminal who kills other black youths in this country. And we'd like to apologise for that, and we're sorry he's died, and we still love him. Well, I'd accept all that. But they wanted him to be the next George Floyd, because if they can paint him as that means they did nothing wrong as parents. And the truth is, they did everything wrong as parents. They came to the greatest country in the world and still messed it all up. Just like Africa's a shithole, they messed it all up. And we've got to start holding these people accountable and saying to them, it's not racism that's holding you back, it's your culture. It's your parenting skills, it's the way you raise your children. That's what's wrong here. It's not racism. But then looking back to the granddad Peter who killed himself in jail, never should have been in jail in the first place.
Correct.
Should he have been prosecuted for what he did at the demonstrations? There's an argument for that. But regardless of all that, nobody else in that position ever would have gone to jail. A non-violent demonstration for shouting and screaming at the police. The only video you can find online of him at demonstrations is him walking up to the police with his hands like that, praying and shouting at him, but his hands are like that, and
there's no violence,
and they're whacking the shields at him and pushing him back, and he walks up to them again like that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's breaking the law or not, but at no point could he say any violence. We need to look at our criminal justice system, and Keir Starmer needs to look at himself and say, who caused this man to kill himself? And the answer is easy, it's the state. It's the criminal justice system. It's Keir Starmer, it's his government who demanded these people go to jail.
Yeah.
At the same time, paedophiles are being let off and being given suspended sentences, but we're letting a non-violent old man go to jail. Yesterday was a really good example of our two-tier policing system. Career criminal gets all the headlines because he's been killed, who was trying to injure and kill other officers, and an old man who was sent to jail and never should have been sent to jail got no press time whatsoever because he was an old white straight man. That's our criminal justice system in a snapshot in one day.
I just don't understand why the people are not going on the streets now to protest about this.
Because he's a good example. Because A, you'll be locked up, and B, you might be dead in jail.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So it's kind of, here's a message for you.
Here's the message. We'll lock you up.
Yeah.
You'll either kill yourself in jail, or maybe you'll get murdered in jail.
Yeah. I'm on a new WhatsApp group. It's come out of the New Culture Forum. They actually posted a video of yours on there. But somebody, I think, posted, I think I might have posted the picture, and I put, thank God we don't live in a totalitarian state where people who politically oppose the government are arrested and put in jail and then conveniently die there.
Yeah.
And it's obviously, well, I'm not sure it is ironic or tongue-in-cheek, because actually that's the reality of what's happening now, isn't it?
These people are political prisoners. Yeah, people keep commenting to me saying, he's not a political prisoner, he pleaded guilty. Well, many people who are persecuted in authoritarian states will plead guilty.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you'll be executed.
Yeah.
If you don't, you'll get a longer sentence. You know you're going to be found guilty anyway because you're a political prisoner.
Yeah.
So the fact these people plead guilty doesn't then mean they're not political prisoners.
Correct.
What do you call it? South Africa, Mandela.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees he was a political prisoner. He was also a terrorist. He admits blowing shit up, but he was still a political prisoner.
Yeah. But this thing about pleading guilty as well, that's another thing, because they gaslighted these guys, all these people who they arrested. They said, if you don't plead guilty, you'll be on remand for 2 years. You'll be held on remand for 2 years, and then when you come to trial, then you might get
and you're going to be found guilty anyway.
Yeah. So they almost said, if you plead guilty, you'll probably get let off.
Yeah.
So they pled guilty, and they weren't let off.
Yeah.
Whereas the guy who shouted at the throats,
yeah.
I can't remember his name now.
He was a counsellor from
Joe Jones or something like that. He was called. He pleaded not guilty.
Yeah.
He's out on bail.
Yeah. His court case is January.
Yeah. So this guy,
he will not do a day inside.
Yeah.
I guarantee he will not do a day inside. He'll get a suspended sentence.
So my view is we have now these political prisoners who were arrested for opposing the government's policies, basically. And that's what they were complaining about. By the way, just going back on this Peter Lynch guy, I saw a video of him, a tribute video to him on YouTube. And it was it must have been about 5 or 6 years ago. He looked younger, basically, and healthier. And he was protesting about Brexit. And he was talking to the interview. He was a perfectly reasonable man talking. A local, I think he was a Yorkshireman. I'm not quite sure where he's from. talking articulately about Brexit, saying, you know, the government have not done what we asked them to do.
Mm.
He wasn't a right-wing thug. He wasn't a brute, you know, a terrorist or anything like that. He was a normal guy, but a working man who felt the government was not carrying out their promises. And his protest at the hostel in Rotherham or whatever, that was just an extension of that. This is obviously a man who's become disenfranchised by the government, not carrying its policies, carrying on with his protesting, then being arrested for that protesting against government policies, then dying in jail. I mean, it's horrific when you think about it.
It sounds just like the Soviet Union in the 70s and the 80s.
It does.
And under Putin now, where the enemies of the state just get arrested, go to jail, and just seem to die while they're there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not claiming any underhand stuff. It probably was suicide, but that's not the point. The point is, he's a political prisoner. He disagreed with the government. He didn't commit violence. And the government needed to make examples of people, otherwise they risked more demonstrations. So he was used as a political pawn and punished because it was convenient for the government. That's usually the definition of a political prisoner. I
want to give some other examples of the two-tier thing. The Peter Vaughan thing, was it Peter Vaughan? I can't remember. Peter Lynch. Is an example that arose yesterday, but I'd already made some notes and seen some articles about it. So since Hugh Edwards, who our listeners may remember is a paedophile newscaster who was recently just set free again on the streets, basically. 11 other perverts have been given suspended sentences since that. I'll just give some names out here. Stuart Pettifer, Dr. Ross Canada, who was a doctor basically, worked at the Tavistock. The Tavistock, as you know, is where they commit those barbaric surgeries on young.
Most people who are interested in the sexuality of children, most of them are pedos.
Yeah.
So he
was. Yeah, he worked at the Tavistock, obviously, you know, sexually mutilating young girls and young boys, basically. But Paul Stewart, another character, all three of those were pedos, basically. They found pictures of young children. They were, I think, Ross Canada was trying to, what's it called, you know, when you catfished? You thought he was speaking to a 14-year-old boy, trying to get I mean, these just a repulsive character. The point is, they've been caught, evidence, they've gone to court and they've been set free. Two other people, Valutum Jegahanthan, I don't know who he is, Martin Thane, both guys who beat their wives or their girlfriends to within an inch of their lives, basically, again, set free. So these people are all set free, given suspended sentences. So they have pled guilty, as Peter Lynch did, but they've been set free, including Hugh Edwards. And there's 11 examples. I've just read out 5 there. There's 11 examples of people like that.
We've said this before. Those individuals are not a threat to the government.
Yeah.
The ministers are not going to allow those people to babysit their kids.
Yeah.
They're not going to get in relationships with them and they get battered. They're no threat to the government. They're a threat to me and you, and to our families and our women and our daughters.
They're a real threat to us.
They're a real threat, but they're not a threat to the government. But an old man shouting at the police, that's a threat, because old men shouting at the police can bring down governments, can bring down regimes, can bring revolution, can change countries. Paedophiles and wife beaters never change anything apart from the colour of a woman's eyes and her body when he beats the shit out of her. But
they are a real threat walking down the street. That Peter Lynch guy, if he walked past me in the street when I'm with my daughters or with my sons or whatever, he's not a threat. He's not a threat to me. He's not a threat to my children at that point. But those characters are real threats, physical threats, free on the streets, walking past me and my children, and potentially are a danger to them. That is the scandal of this, isn't it?
If governments were interested on our personal safety, they would have heavily reduced mass migration. But they don't, because they don't care about our personal safety. And this is just another example of them not caring. It's cheaper and easier for them to let these people go. It's something like £48,000 a year to lock up an average prisoner. 60,000, 80,000 for a Class A prisoner. government skint. So they'd let these people go because it saves them £45,000 a year and keeps the places open for people like me and you.
There's some other examples as well. So a 65-year-old woman, an e-bike. Have you seen these e-bike things? Yep. She was hurtling down the pavement on one of these things. She hit a 2-year-old boy, split his head open. He needed 12 stitches in the head. Fled the scene. Was later found and let off by the police.
Yeah.
That's just like...
So, the accident itself, should be prosecuted for dangerous driving, on the pavement, whatever. But the more serious thing is fleeing the scene.
Yes.
Because that becomes intent.
Yeah.
You didn't intend to run the kid over, it was an accident.
Yeah.
Your fault, but an accident. But to flee the scene means you've taken that decision that justice will not be done.
Yeah.
And the police just let it go.
Yeah.
But these e-bikes are a danger, especially in city centres.
They are a danger, yeah.
Someone knocked over a girl, a young woman, last year sometime, and she had to have a finger amputated.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
The damage was that much, she had to have a finger amputated. That's grievous bodily harm.
Yeah. I think there was another one where an old guy was hit, fell over, banged his head on the pavement and died. I don't know what happens to the e-bike rider. So these are real dangers that are happening around us, and these people appear to be just exonerated by the law. They just
well, cyclists can do no wrong, can they?
No, and I think that's a really good point, isn't it? It's a really good point. Yeah. If it's, and we'll talk about something else in a minute where there's another example of that, because I haven't actually written this down in my notes, but I wanted to talk to you about it because I'll come back to it later. I'll just finish off these examples here. There was another article about a man. I don't know if you saw the footage. There was an October 7th memorial, because we've just come to the anniversary of October 7th, the massacre of the Jewish people by Hamas. So there's a man pictured destroying, lots of pictures of him, facial or whatever, the October 7th memorial in London. There was nothing about him being arrested or being caught, but lots of pictures of it.
I read he has been caught.
Oh, he has been caught.
He has been caught, but that's it.
Right, okay.
Nothing else.
Nothing. No details on what's happening.
No details.
I wonder if he will end up in jail.
No.
Yeah, he won't, will he?
No.
You know.
You can smash Barclays Bank's windows on CCTV and be arrested and admit you did it. You still won't go to jail.
Yeah.
So criminal damage. If we're not sending people to jail for raping children, then we're not sending people to jail for criminal damage, especially of Jews.
No, but we're sending them to jail if they shout at a policeman.
Because that might bring down the state.
Yeah. I mean, I can't understand why people are not seeing this clearly now. It's happening in front of our faces now, isn't it? This, and people seem to not be aware it's happening. They seem to become almost inured to this stuff that is happening around us now. They don't seem to react or have any kind of reaction to it, which I find
I think it's been happening for that long that it's become normal.
Yeah, I think
this hasn't just started. This has been going on for decades and decades. It's getting more and more obvious, but it's been going on for decades and decades.
I had to go to the hospital yesterday, and the lady who was looking after me was a Portuguese lady, and she said, "Oh, I've lived here for 10 years. I've got my kids here, or whatever." And she said, "I go back to Portugal to see my parents, and the kids don't want to come back, And I was about to say, I don't blame you, because this place is just, I said, England is not a pleasant place to be at the moment. And if you're from somewhere, Portugal, which is safe, and tragically, one of the girls who was killed, 3 girls who was killed in Southport was Portuguese.
Yeah, she was.
Her parents had come over for a better life to this country.
We need to be careful of the phrase better life. They came over here for more money.
Yes.
So having a better life isn't always equated with more money.
Yeah. But I was going to say to her, I was going to go off on one of my rants, and I thought, it's not really fair, is it? Because she has young children. She's trying to carve a career and a life in this country. And somebody like me saying this place is a dump, and it's not a democracy, and you have no civil and free speeches, whatever. That's not a nice thing for her to hear when she's raising her children here, is it?
No, but don't forget, she understands Portugal, and Portugal seems great because we go on there on holiday. We don't live there. We don't earn our living there, and they've got all the problems we've got. Some of them are worse, some of them are better.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't launch into a tirade about it. And finally, on the two-tier thing. So now, anti-Semitic hate crimes, the figures just come out, have doubled in the last year, from 1,543 to 3,282, 113% increase. So this hatred of Jews is now manifest and real, isn't it, basically, in this country?
Oh, I'm surprised.
I mean, it was, by the way, this was a tiny article.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's only as low as doubling.
I suspect it's more than that.
It must be a hell of a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Jew baiting and Jew hating is almost a national sport in the UK at the moment.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd say that, but it is.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it?
It is.
And I think the fact that article was relatively low down in the paper, not a big thing, because I would think 20 years ago, if you said anti-Semitic hate crimes had doubled, there would have been an uproar. But it has now become acceptable, hasn't it? It
has, but 20 years ago, the Jews were at the top of the victim pyramid.
Yes.
And many Jewish people have played on that themselves, but it turns out that now they're at the bottom of the pyramid. And other people are playing on the victim Olympics.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean Jews aren't suffering now, because we all know they're suffering now. But it's what happens when we look at victimhood, because your status can go up and down.
Yeah. What I wanted to talk about, whilst I was in the hospital yesterday, there was a TV on with the BBC on, you know, and I don't watch the BBC, as you know, but I was watching it, and I actually thought, am I in a parallel universe here? Because the things on the screen did not reflect the things that you and I are seeing, the things that you and I are talking about. And I just thought, and I think I got a glimpse into the belly of the beast there, which is basically what the majority of people in this country are being fed all the time. And it was kind of... So first of all, there was an article about Dr. Michael Mosley. Have you heard of him? He's the guy who died recently in Greece. He was a doctor, TV doctor. And there was a long... He was found dead on the beach in Greece. Do you remember? It was quite big news, actually, on the... I think your reaction is probably appropriate, because you don't know who the hell I'm talking about. So there's a long thing about Dr. Michael Mosley, who was this TV doctor who talks about dieting all the time, and I think he initiated the 5-2 diet or whatever. But I mean, this guy is really not anybody of any great significance. There's a film of him. And I turned the volume down, actually. I was alone in the room initially, so I turned the volume down so I wouldn't have to listen to it. But he was in a room drawing a picture with his wife. They were learning how to draw or something like that. And it was a massive room, like with beautifully lit, with a lovely table, and a room most people do not have in their houses. Do you know what I mean? So there's that bit first. Then there was a guy called John Stapleton on, who's a former TV presenter. John Stapleton.
I've heard of him.
You've heard of him. And it was about the fact he has dementia, and his son is learning to, so they're out walking. He's talking with his son. And his son's saying, "Dad, we have to talk about you go." And they were walking in a beautiful garden, a massive, beautiful garden. Because John Stapleton obviously is one of the elite, moneyed former BBC presenters, walking in his beautiful garden, sitting on a big enough to have a bench right in the middle. That And it's like, this is not what people, people talk about. And then there was an article about cows, and it was like, be careful this time of year when you're out walking in the countryside, because cows have got young calves and they can be very aggressive. And then an interview with a woman who was hit by, and I was like, how many of us do you think are out walking in the countryside, going near a cow to be hit by it and whatever? And then I thought,
several people a year are killed by cows.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, but in the context of all the things that are happening in this country at the moment, why was that being fed to me at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock? And then I texted my wife and I said, there's a thing here about cows. I said, I can't believe what I'm seeing here, because everything. And then there was, in between all this, there was something about Strictly Come Dancing as well, and all that. So all this asinine stuff. So I texted my wife and I said, they're now talking about cows, you know, hitting people, and you know, as you say, 3 people a year, fantastic. You know, how many people a day are stabbed in London at that point? And she said, yeah, of course, because cows are bad now. Because cows are bad now,
they
aren't
they? They're killing the world, aren't they?
Yeah. And of course I thought, oh my God, of course. Yeah. How can we, you know, let's send a negative message out about cows. Why not? Because we don't want cows, do we? Because cows are bad for the environment. We don't want to you know, to feed people with cows anymore, do we? We want to just let, you know, put solar panels on fields and all that sort of stuff, and they're doing their farts and destroying the planet as well, aren't they? And I thought, this is what, and I think you and I don't watch the BBC, but a lot of people do, Nick, and this is what they're seeing. This stuff. They're seeing stuff about people we know nothing about, who are relevant to us, who live in big fantastic houses with big gardens and big rooms and all that. They're seeing things about cows being bad for the environment, and you know, it's constant, isn't it?
It's propaganda.
Like yeah,
it's propaganda. It used to work when there was only 2 channels, 3 channels, because we all watch the same stuff.
Yeah.
But now we all can watch different stuff. We realise now a lot of the stuff now is just pure propaganda.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I assume that a lot of people like you and I have kind of lost confidence in the institutions, and it's a terrible thing when you hit that point, isn't it? But there must be a hell of a lot of people who haven't quite seen it yet and aren't aware of it, and never will be, and are not thinking about the fact we can't trust the government. After lockdown, you can't trust the government. They lied to us about COVID. They've lied to us about, you know, immigration now. They're not giving us data, the whole thing basically. So people like you and me have lost faith in the institutions, but a lot of people haven't, have they?
No, absolutely not.
And they're sitting there being fed every day about the cows or whatever.
And it makes them feel safe.
Yes.
It makes them feel protected. It makes them feel part of a community. And that's what governments do. And governments have always lied to us.
Yeah.
Every tribal leader has always lied.
Yeah.
But it's a fact we've got so much choice now and so many different narratives that we can actually see now. Where 30, 40 years ago, we were being lied to then, but it was okay because we never got told the truth by anybody else.
Yeah.
So we thought it was the truth and believed it was the truth. So therefore it became the truth. Now it's a lot harder to lie to people now.
Yeah. Just on the elite and the media, there's a programme on BBC called Doctors. You may have seen this on Twitter because there's been quite a lot about it. So it's a series called Doctors. Apparently it has 1.5 million viewers.
Right, I'm aware of it.
They've cancelled it. But I saw some clips that somebody posted. It might have been Nick Dixon posted actually. So there's a character there called Dr. Graham Elton, who's a middle-aged white bloke, basically. And all the clips I saw are trying to show us how despicable this man is, basically. So there's a dwarf comes in. Can you say dwarf anymore?
You can on this channel.
So there's a dwarf comes in and he said, "Oh, I didn't see you there." Not joking, just saying I didn't see. And she's like, "How dare you say that to me? You know, blah blah blah. I'm sick of people." And it's this thing that you and I would say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there," but they're kind of making it out. It's kind of some massive slur on this small woman.
It's about diversity and equality and being offensive and being a victim and being a perpetrator of a hate crime.
Yeah. And then there's another clip where he calls this bloke him or you, and he said, "How dare you? You know, my pronouns are they, them, or whatever." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" So this guy, they're trying to portray this character as a horrific bigot, but he actually comes across as just totally normal because he's saying that. And then the next minute, and this is again mainstream. See, the next minute, the nurse who he's misgendered, comes in. The male nurse comes in dressed in a female nurse's outfit. That's and he's prancing around talking to everybody, and everybody's just meant to think it's normal. And then he goes home, and his wife says, "I need to let you know that Felicity, our daughter, she's now a man." So, and this thing is meant to be seriously showing what a bigot he is, but it just looks like a comedy show because and maybe that's why they're cancelling it. But again, this is on mainstream TV, and they're trying to portray this character, Dr. Graham Elton, as some massive bigot. And in fact, he is a normal man in a sea of insanity. But they're actually, people who are writing it, they actually present it that way.
It doesn't surprise me. This is how you mould a population. You introduce these things very slowly over time, and it becomes normal, and then you ramp it up every couple of years, every decade, and we end up with this.
If you'd have shown that 10 years ago, people would have thought it was a comedy.
Yeah.
Now it's been shown as a serious program and showing what a bigot this guy is. It's, you know, it's just, you need to see the clips if you do. Snow White. So the latest thing is Snow White, the film, remaking Snow White. But it's being played by a Colombian, basically.
Yeah.
Who's a brown-skinned person, which is fine. But she's now saying the name Snow White came from her surviving a snowstorm, not because she had snow white skin, which is actually the reality of what Snow White is all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's a white-skinned with black hair, isn't she, basically? Yeah. So the actress who plays her is saying her name didn't come from her being, because people are saying, well, you know, Snow White wasn't brown, she was white. Saying, well, her name came from surviving a snowstorm.
Well, that might be the answer in the film they've made. This is a Disney film.
Yes, it's a Disney film.
It was made 2 years ago.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
It's not been released yet.
Oh, that's right. I guess you're right.
It's run into so many problems. She's upset everybody. They had to reshoot all the dwarf scenes because they didn't have dwarfs. They had just a group of people.
So they weren't even short people.
No, they're all, and some were black and some were fat and some were gay. There was a mixture of diversity of these people.
Well, to be fair, the Seven Dwarfs were diverse, weren't they? They were like grumpy, happy,
exactly.
and all.
They were the original diverse people. Yeah. She's upset everybody because she's a narcissist.
Yeah.
So they had to delay the releasing it, and it's got to a stage now where they're going to release it now. But it's 2 years late. But it was fully made 2 years ago, but she created such a storm that if we release it, no one's going to go watch it.
Oh, really?
So they've waited 2 years, and now they're going to release it. It's all going to be a bit of a flop.
Of course it'll be a flop. You know it's going to be a flop. There is some sanity in the middle of all this. Clive Myrie, who's a black TV presenter, do you know him?
No.
I quite like him, actually. He's quite good. He might be taking over from Hugh Edwards.
Right.
But he's quite a sane guy, and I've seen him talking.
You've been taking over Hugh Edwards actually on TV or in the back entry? How's he taking over Hugh Edwards? You need to clarify that point.
I don't think he's taking him over in a sexual.
Oh, so on TV then, that's fair enough.
But he went to the university, and somebody asked him a university presentation. Somebody asked him a question about Israel and Palestine, and he kind of, you know, he was quite reasonable about his response, and then a Palestinian protester then attacked him, but he called him a fucking idiot, which I think was brilliant, basically. So, but that's right, that's the correct response, isn't it? Yeah. He's trying to put his view forward, and because his view didn't correlate with some Palestinians, they start shouting him down, so they had to drag him out, and Clive Myrie called him a fucking idiot, which I thought was great.
Well, you can imagine how upset that protester is. We've got this black guy working for the BBC who doesn't support Palestine. That's a shock in itself.
So the mainstream media entertainment is populated by these characters. So there's a guy called Asif Kapadia, who's a mainstream documentary maker. He made some quite good documentaries. I think he made Senna and a couple of other ones. But he's been removed as a patron of a charity because this is a character in the public eye, quite well known, quite well supported by a lot of mainstream media. But he was doing things like sending out tweets of Netanyahu feasting on the blood of babies. So these characters now feel bold enough, they're emboldened enough to, even though they're in the mainstream media, to do things like that, to post things and say things that are actually quite horrific and reprehensible, and they don't seem to realise it's not appropriate. But more importantly, they're not concerned about their careers in doing that, are they?
Well, they're not concerned about their careers because they think everyone supports them. I don't think that's much of a problem with him posting those memes. I don't agree with him, but if he wants to post, that's what he believes, that Israel are killing babies and Netanyahu, whatever it's called, if he wants to post that, I don't see that's anyone's business.
Well, I think for me, it's not the fact it's not anyone, and you know, we can go back to the 53-year-old lady from Cheshire who was 62-year-old lady who arrested for saying burn down the hostels. I believe, yes, you're correct, people have a right to do things like that if they want to do them. It's not pleasant or whatever. Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting about that for me is he feels comfortable as somebody in the mainstream media, in the eye of the mainstream media, who earns his living from major institutions in doing that. And there's another, and that's what I'm more what I'm trying to say is these people now believe that these views which are reprehensible and these behaviours which are
mainstream.
Mainstream. And it's fine to do it. That's the bit for me. There's also a comedian called Eshan Akbar, again a BBC comedian. He's been on Celebrity to MasterChef. Again, he's like this that really horrific
Numa.
Kish Numa, whatever. Nish Kumar, who's a repulsive little man. So he posted a tweet saying, a year ago something happened involving hummus and sausages, meaning the festival. The people killed at the festival, that resulted in 45,000 deaths. So he belittles the slaughter on October the 7th and said, something involving hummus and sausages at a festival resulted in 45,000 deaths. Again, a mainstream media person being on Celebrity MasterChef because he's a comedian, celebrity comedian like Nish Kumar, feels totally comfortable. And you're right, people have a right to express themselves or whatever, but he feels perfectly comfortable doing that on mainstream, on Twitter, not worried about his career.
Again, he's trying to crack a joke. Is it funny or not? That's down to other people to judge. We've made jokes about Keir Starmer using the word sausages. Again, it's not an issue for me. I think there's a lot. I understand the point is it's become so mainstream that if you'd have said that about anything else 10 years ago, you lost your job.
Yeah.
No matter what the conflict was, anywhere in the world, you lost your job. Making a joke about conflicts, being a mainstream BBC comedian, you lost your job. You don't lose your job now, especially if the butt of the joke is dead Jews.
And again, The Guardian did a review.
If you'd have made a joke like that about George Floyd,
oh God, yeah,
or Chris Kaba, he'd be out.
Yeah, if you said 4 years ago, some black criminal who, some black criminal who, who was accidentally killed, was righteously killed on such and such by some coppers, and that resulted in stupid demonstrations, you'd be hung, drawn and quartered, wouldn't you? The Guardian did a review of One Day in October, which is a Channel 4 documentary. About October the 7th, and they had to withdraw the review because they included it in lines like, if you want to understand why Hamas murdered civilians, One Day in October won't help, basically. Dismissing it basically as uninformative, not useful, and doesn't give enough background to explain the justification for Hamas doing that. But they were actually asked to or it was withdrawn by their editors.
Also, Gary Lineker said, talking about the Gaza thing, that Hamas thing. That Hamas thing where 13 other people were killed. That Hamas thing.
Yeah.
And he got away with that.
Yeah. It's just, they're almost blind, aren't they? They can't see what they're saying or what they're doing and see how inappropriate it is in these situations.
That's what happens when you hate a certain group. You don't see them as human.
And again, just to show how mainstream this anti-Semitism and behaviour is against Israel, the UNWRA, which is the United Nations Relief Place for Palestine, and apparently a number of their members were implicated in the October 7th attacks.
Lots of them are.
Lots of them. Was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize.
I don't think it's been nominated yet. It's been suggested they should be nominated.
Suggested it will be nominated, yes. Sorry, you're right, I apologise, But that's how people think.
Yeah.
They're happy to talk about nominating an agency that potentially supported the October 7th attacks for a Nobel Peace Prize.
If that agency didn't exist, the people would turn on Hamas, because Hamas do not provide any services for the people in Gaza. So the United Nations do it all. run all the food programmes, the education, the hospitals, and we leave the government free to wage war. If we took that UN agency out of there, over time, over a couple of years, it'll be then down to Hamas, you need to run this, otherwise the people are going to turn on you, and we need to leave them to it. So they're a huge part of the problem.
They're basically supporting Hamas, aren't they? Talking about inappropriate behaviour, just want to talk about Labour, and there's a few things to talk about, but I think what's interesting, whilst I was away, Starmer hit his first 100 days, I think, which I think we haven't talked about. There's a few things of interest, really. So apparently Labour's lost 11 councillors in the last month, and Reform has gained 2, basically. So these are local by-elections, are they, where councillors... So the message is clearly out there. People are not happy with Labour. The house builders, the commercial house builders, are now saying none of them believe that Starmer will hit his target. So he's promised to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years. Apparently, none of them believe that it's possible to happen.
In the last 50, 60 years, every government who have promised to build more houses and set a target, every single one of them has failed to hit their own targets. Everyone.
This is more of the same. I think, but one that's really interesting for me is have you heard about this Taylor Swift thing?
With the blue light escort?
The Met Police were pressured by the Attorney General to give free security and a free escort to Taylor Swift while she was in London, basically. Now, why that stinks to me is we then find out that most of the Labour cabinet ended up getting free tickets to the Taylor Swift concert. I mean, it's just, they talk about corruption, they talked about how corrupt the Tories were. This just stinks, doesn't it? It's almost kind of, guys, give Taylor Swift a free escort, then we can get some free tickets to go and see Taylor Swift. Is it that simple?
That's how it looks. But it's even worse than that. Why are we spending taxpayers' money on a foreign, basically billionaire in this country who's working? Who's
coming to make a load of money in this country, or people in this country?
I don't see why. She can afford to have her own SAS team. I'm sure she's in danger, because most celebrities are. She had to cancel some of the German tour because Islamists were going to kill her. So I'm sure there's a legitimate threat out there for her. I'm sure that's true. Nothing to do with me. My mum is under legitimate threat every time she walks to local shops because of all the crackheads and foreign criminals in the area.
And the people who haven't been jailed.
So she doesn't get a blue light escort. So why is a foreign billionaire getting it? It just shows us that the government do not care about us. They care about everybody else. Foreigners, billionaires, everybody else, but not about the average English British person. And then the fact they all got free tickets is just pure hypocrisy. One of the Labour ministers, I forgot which one it is now, the one who's married to Ed Balls, Yvette Cooper.
Yvette Cooper, yes. Yeah.
She put down that she got some free tickets worth 25 quid each. Yeah, she was in the Royal Box.
25 quid each.
Yeah,
in the Royal Box for the
concert. So what's that? £1,000 per ticket. She put down £25. Got 4 tickets, 100 quid. She put down.
They're just liars as well, aren't they?
Liars, or have no idea of the value of stuff because everything gets given to them.
Yeah. I was actually thinking of this today because we were in the car and we were talking about potholes. I don't know if you've been on the... You got a car, haven't you?
Yeah. Potholes are awful.
Potholes are dreadful. Worse they have been, I think, for decades at the moment. And we were going somewhere and I was thinking, it would be good. They should say to all ministers, anybody who's in the cabinet, in fact any MP, you have to drive yourself around. You can't have a ministerial car. You have to drive yourself around. Are you going to have to put some lights on? That's fine.
That's actually all right, isn't it?
That's a bit seedy with you with the pink lights behind you, Nick. But
just for our viewers, we've set new stuff up. We've got new lights. The lights are battery powered. I thought they'd last they said 2 hours. They've lasted an hour. So you have to bear with us for 1 or 2 episodes while we get all these tweaks done. But I think that's actually all right.
If you get it, yes, it looks a little bit cosy for my liking.
But we're not scissoring.
No, there's no gay stuff going on. I hope. What was it? Yeah. So I was thinking, why don't they say to all ministers, you have to drive yourself around? Basically, you can't travel in private jets or helicopters. If you want to get somewhere in the country, you've either go there in your car or you've got to use public transport like everybody else. You can't go first class, basically. Because I think if they did that, they start to maybe understand the problems that we, the people, have.
They would, but who are the people who could instigate that change?
Them.
And that's the answer to your question.
Yeah. But isn't
they've worked and skived and climbed up that greasy pole all their lives to get to a stage where they're treated as special, as emperors. And once you get there, they go, I'm not giving this up now. I've worked to get here. I want this chauffeur-driven limousine. I want the private jet. We had Ed, what's he called? Miliband. Preaching about Kaba and stuff like that. He's taken private jets recently to go to meetings in other countries. Private jets. And he talks about how we save the environment. These people want all the trappings of success and it being at the top of the greasy pole. Yeah. So they will never, ever give it up.
And do you think all people are like that? Because I was having this discussion with my wife after I said this. And I said, well, I think lots of people are like that. When they get money, they start to behave that way. But are all people like that?
Not 100%. I'd say most people.
Yeah. But the people we want in charge are people who don't want that, though, aren't we? We want people in charge who, because by not driving themselves around in London, by not travelling on public transport, they are not seeing our problems, are they? This idea that they sit in Islington at dinner parties is correct, isn't it? They have actually now elevated themselves above us, the peasants, to live their life in a where they used to joke about the Queen as she thought everywhere smelled of fresh paint. Yeah. But that's the way they live now, isn't it? Taylor Swift concerts. Yeah. Oh, I've got some tickets to 25 quid for those. Is that what they're now thinking? Because they've reached this point. You're right. They're grabbing greedily at the pleasures available to people in their position, and have they just totally lost touch with reality?
I don't think any of them had that much connection with reality anyway, not in our political system for decades now. But if we need to try to understand why they have those modes of transport, and it's because if our system worked better and they were much better quality MPs, we want their time spent fixing the country, not driving in rush hour where they can sit in the back and read the papers from the red box. We want them going on, private planes across the country or to different countries so they can get some work done, so not being mithered all the time by drunks on the train going to London. So we're quite willing to allow them that little bit of luxury because we expect them to use their time in a more productive manner and get more work done, which benefits us. What annoys us at the moment is there is no work being done. They're not productive and they're not improving our lives. But yet they keep all the perks.
Yeah, but I think that proves my point, because if they did go on the train to London with everybody else and we're being minded by drunks, they should say this is unacceptable. I mean, you talk about the train. There's an article I sent you. A 13-year-old girl in London was on the tube, travelling on the tube. She's a 13-year-old normal girl. Yeah. She was tricked by a guy, took her back to his flat where him and two of his friends raped her continuously. This is a 13-year-old girl in London on the train. These are the realities and the problems we are facing as a society. And how can our politicians possibly understand that when they travel in luxury cars, police motorbikes go ahead of them so they can travel through those. Yeah. They go to Taylor Swift concerts where they think the tickets are 25 quid. They travel in private jets. How can they possibly see what we are facing as their electorate, basically?
They won't at that moment in time, but if we had better politicians who weren't career politicians, they would bring all that life experience into the role. but they don't.
They don't have any initial life experience.
No, because they've gone from university studying politics into working for an MP in politics.
Yeah.
So they have no real life experience. I think that's the answer. But we don't want our politicians wasting their time driving themselves.
No, I get that. Yeah. I totally get that. And I understand that. However, by the very fact they would discover what the traffic jams were like, by the very fact that their car will be hitting potholes every 3 minutes, they would start to see the issues that need to be addressed. Not sending 100 billion to Africa or 10 billion.
I think they know what needs to be addressed. Every MP gets hundreds of emails and letters every single week from their constituents telling what's going on. They're getting polls all the time about what the general public think about this, that. They know what needs to be done.
Do you think they know, really?
They know, they just don't care. It just doesn't fit in with what they want to do. Or more likely, those issues are just too difficult. So I'll ignore them and I'll look at an issue that makes me look better.
Why would they think they're too difficult? Why would they think fixing the potholes in the roads is too difficult? What has been said to them that makes them think I can't fix the potholes in the road?
First thing will be money. So where's the money coming from? We've had potholes that long now that most people are used to it. It's become part of everyday life. People moan about it, but no one's going to not vote for you because of potholes. If we take that money out of the NHS, education, out of this, out of that, you may lose votes over that because you're now taking money away from something. No one's going to win an election on potholes. It turns out if you fix the potholes, then everyone's cars would last longer. Transport systems would be easier. More people will be able to get from A to B quicker. There'll be less cars on the road. The haulage industry will do better. Less pollution. So there's loads of benefits. But then they're also looking at, well, if we can find the money, what are the odds on the government initiating a national scheme and funding to fix the potholes without it going wrong? And if it goes wrong, I get the blame. At the moment, I don't get blamed for potholes because we've had potholes for decades. But if I initiate this and spend money and it all goes wrong, I'll be to blame. I'm not willing to put my head above the parapet for this.
Do you think they're actually thinking in such a sophisticated way?
Yes. I think their advisors, I've spoken to politics and advisors, this is what they're being told all the time. Their job is to be elected again. Hence why we don't fix long-term problems. Because to fix long-term problems, you've got to invest a lot of time, energy and money. And many of our problems will take decades to fix. These individuals will not be in politics in decades. So why am I trying to fix these problems now?
So
I get no benefit out of it.
So they're basically selfish.
Yeah,
they're basically selfish individuals who don't really care about this stuff. Yes. They just want to think about it. That's kind of your premise for this, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess that goes back to the entire root of it, isn't it? These people do not care about us. They care about their careers and where their careers are going and going to Taylor Swift concerts.
That's why we call them career politicians.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.